All right, well, that was good. I was worried nobody'd have anything to talk about at the break. And we didn't want to pull you apart. That was excellent. Probably the networking that goes on is so key. Hey, I found out, as suspected, not only was Patrick Murphy, delayed by that bridge going down, he was there all last night helping to rebuild it. That's the kind of guy he is. He was helping, pitching in, and no, just kidding. But we're really lucky to have the Honorable Patrick Murphy with us. He was the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army back under President Obama in 2016. Graduate of King's College. I think a hockey player of some type, right? He sort of tried to play hockey, but the University of Scranton ROTC program and Widener University Commonwealth School of Law. Served in the Army, and that, again, gave him that passion for the Army and service that he's maintained. In 2007, he was elected, really the first Iraq War veteran elected to Congress, and served as a congressman of Pennsylvania, the 8th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. But I think his most important role is right now he's a senior fellow for AUSA, much more important than all those other ones, Pat, no doubt about it. But we're glad you made it, and glad, again, thanks. Not an easy drive from Philadelphia, especially today. If you've been on 95 lately, it's pretty tough. But thanks very much. So please join me in welcoming the Honorable Patrick Murphy. I also forgot to mention he has a new TV show out, The Warrior Class. And anybody, if you've seen it, it's on Saturday mornings. I think across about 40 cities. Fantastic show. The first show had a guy named Millie. Mark Millie was on there. He interviewed, and I think the next was
Alex Gorski.
Yeah, and so anyway, it's a great show if you get a chance, and really interesting, showing what our veterans do, and so thanks.
Thanks, General Brown. Good morning, everybody. To my fellow brothers and sisters in the Army, happy birthday. It's a great day. I can't wait to cut some cake with General Brown and the team and Les Smith. And it is great to be a senior fellow here at AUSA. And I know you all know this, but we're all part of being the voice of the Army, and we're 1 million strong right now under the leadership of General Brown and General Smith. And we're very, very blessed. I know I have some other senior fellows that are here, Holly Daly, Mr. Tyson, like a lot of just the great Americans in our group. So I do want to recognize the fact that, like General Barrett, the commander of Cyber Command, ROTC graduate, we commission more. I know the West Point guys and gals, and I taught there, and I was on the board there. I love West Point, but I will say that we commission more officers every year through ROTC. So it's the largest college scholarship program in America, and General Milley is obviously a graduate of Princeton, who was a hockey player. So yes, I did play a little bit of hockey. Yes, I was a college all-star, and yes, I did get thrown out of the all-star game at Princeton for fighting. So it was a perfect segue to be commissioned as an Army officer, and I loved every minute of it. So, listen, I'm very passionate about today's topic for several reasons. One, this is where, as a hockey player, one of the best hockey players in the world was Wayne Gretzky. Someone asked him once, and I'm sure you've heard the quote, how were you so good? How'd you know where to pass the puck, et cetera? And he said, I don't pass the puck where people are. I pass the puck where people are going to be. And that's why cybersecurity is so important, especially after COVID. I've not just when I was helping lead the Army with then the Chief of Staff, Mark Milley, when we made Cyber Command a unified command in 2017. But when you look at what's just going on in the world right now, I've been blessed. I've been a commissioner of what's called the U.S. Cyberspace Solarium Commission. That was a bicameral, bipartisan, public-private commission that really looked at what's going on in the world and made recommendations. And if you look at commissions in Washington, the history commissions, what is key is some of them produce literally a book that sits on a shelf somewhere. It's an academic exercise. And when I was put on it, I said, listen, I'm not with 14 other commissioners. It's chaired by Senator Angus King and Congressman Mike Gallagher and some CEOs and other folks. We said, hey, we want to really dig in here. And the fact that we had legislatures on our 14-member commission and private sector folks, we had 82 recommendations, 27 became law, and some others. So the reason why we have some different structural changes, like things like a national cyber director now in the White House, that was one of our fellow commissioners, Chris Inglis. who's in that role. He just stepped down. We're looking for his replacement right now, but other things as well, really plussing up CISA and some other organizations. But let me just tell you why real quick. Our national security is tied to our economic security. So if I can just talk to you real quick about geopolitical pressures. The great thing about our country is you have the #1 military in the world and #1 economy in the world. But that's not our God-given right. We have to work at it every single day in both counts. And we have obviously a peer competitor in China nipping at our bud right there. But what we see right now especially with the illegal Russian invasion of Ukraine, is that people understand there are good people in the world and bad people in the world. So you have other European countries and our allies are finally stepping up. Are they stepping up as much as we would like? In some cases, no. Let me give you the example. We've put out there that we've all agreed as far as the United Nations, hey, we all should have 2% of our GDP spent on defense. There's 30 EU countries. How many have put 2% up? Only 7 of 30. You have a illegal Russian invasion in their backyard, and only 7 of the 30. Now, most of them are increasing them, but we need them to do better. As Colin Powell said, who was one of my personal heroes, another ROTC graduate, and I'm not trying to bust your chops. I feel bad. He's my boss, and I bust his chops. I'm not going to be invited back for the next birthday. But okay, Colin Powell once said that, hey, America's not the policeman of the world, but when other countries call 911, they call America, right? So, and I think we understand that we're still the reluctant warrior, but we can't also be the banker of the world as well. So we need these other countries. And what you're seeing and what is putting China on their heels is the fact that we do have nations stepping up left and right to push back on this illegal invasion. So it's a positive thing. And obviously it has ramifications on Taiwan. But make no mistake, when you look at cybersecurity, and again, I know I'm speaking to the choir, not to the congregation right now, but in the choir, you have 5 domains of war: air, land, sea, space, cyber. Cyber is exploding, and cyber, as you know, is that gray space area, that non-kinetic area, but it's getting more and more kinetic, as we know. We have people that have died from cybercrime. We've had people that, with ransomware, shutting down hospitals over in England, and because of that, there was people literally dying because of it. So you've seen Russia attack our water treatment facilities, our electrical grids here in America. And again, I have full faith and confidence in Army Cyber Command, the 100 brigades and what they're doing. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be here for most of the day. Really exciting. Our offensive capabilities are second to none. Our defensive capabilities as far as protecting the Pentagon and our assets, phenomenal. But when you have America that has an economy that is dependent in the private sector to drive it, and 85% of our critical infrastructure is in the private sector, we have to do a better job at building these public-private partnerships. I'm a lawyer by trade after becoming a commissioned officer. They come to go to law school, went back into the Army, but we have laws in the books that are important and made sense 30, 40, 50 years ago. But these public-private sectors have a carrot and a stick to make sure people do the right thing. It's critically, critically important. I think it said in the beginning, but I'll repeat myself. After COVID, cybercrime up 600%. Intellectual property stolen. In the defense sector, I know we have some big primes in here. You all know it. I've been on the board of BAE and BAE Systems. We see the attacks every single day. You see the attacks every single day. The president, under the last president, this current president, are trying to get the Department of Defense and the DIB, the Defense Industrial Base, to lead by example. When you talk about CMMC and those things, and I know we keep pushing it back, it's going to the right, but we got to get after it. We got to get after it. And if we don't get after it, because we got to lead, and again, it's not going to be CMMC for all of the federal agencies and the government. It'll be a NIST standard, et cetera, but still, we have to do better. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees when we talk about cybersecurity. I do want to just mention this, if that's okay. And because, my perspective is, I'm out of the Pentagon, I'm out of the Army. I mean, I'm still a soldier for life. but I teach at the Wharton Business School. I own 60 companies. I'm a entrepreneur. I'm trying to be the next, Sam Walton, who's an Army guy who started the largest retailer in the world called Walmart, or Ralph Roberts started Comcast, largest media company in the world, or Phil Knight. Phil Knight is Nike, Army officer. Him and Bill Bowerman started Nike. So that's my focus, but it's tied into what we're talking about here today, because when you look at 21 years ago, we had this thing called Sarbanes-Oxley. What was Sarbanes-Oxley? The private sector wasn't doing the right thing. They were cooking the books. I'm not trying to, I'm a capitalist, right? But it's what happened in the past, right? And you had CEOs and you had board of directors who say, well, this is what the numbers say, this is what the numbers say. And they tried to push it off to the CFO. And well, it's that person, we're just reporting. And Sarbanes-Oxley came in and they said, you have to have mandated general accepted accounting principles, some other things. And now when you invest in a company, whether it's stocks or et cetera, you have more confidence now because of Sarbanes-Oxley, because there's mandates and you can't push off to the CFOs. It's a CEO and a board. And that's why board of directors now have audit committees and stuff like that. What you're seeing as it now 21 years later, because that was 2002, after Enron and some other shady things that happened and people got hurt. Now what you're seeing is with data privacy and cybersecurity, companies are like, well, hey, it's not our fault that people got tens of thousands of our customers' data. And so unlike 21 years ago, the United States of America is not the regulatory superpower in the world. It's really the EU and the 450 million folks that live in the European Union, and it's really them, and they're pushing out very progressive cybersecurity standards and data privacy standards. America has been a little bit slow to draw, because we have lobbyists that don't want to change it. We just want to keep it how it is. The reality of it is that you have California and some other states, but things are changing. You see the SEC just last year push out a new standard on data privacy and cybersecurity. You're going to see more of that, and it's going to happen. And especially now, when you look at the sheer numbers of our country and the pressures that our legislatures, both Democrats and Republicans, are facing. Right now, before corporations, they support the Republican Party and not the Democratic Party. It was unions on the Democratic Party. Now, there's a lot of angst against big tech, and they want heads to roll. And so folks are coming forward and saying, both Democrats and Republicans, saying, hey, we want to hold people accountable when it comes to data privacy, and security. So you're seeing that. So like a Sarbanes-Oxley push, and this is what one of our recommendations was, this push, saying have a carrot and a stick, but the private sector generally has to step up to the table. They have to have boards of directors that have experience in cybersecurity. They have to have protections for data for the people. Why? You hear this, I'm sure you read the articles, data is the new oil. Get data, it allows you to get in front of customers, sell your products, it's all that. And that's why when you go on the dark web, if you really want, you can go buy someone's great profile, their information, their social security, and you can walk out basically for $100 in the dark web right now and get someone who's relatively wealthy, making healthy six figures, get their data, go on a spree, open up credit cards, do some stuff. And by the time they find out about it, you walk away. It's very advantageous. So in the private sector, one of the companies is this company called Encore, where we're on the dark web. We're doing the constant monitoring and all that. We have about 200 folks. I know one of the folks is down on Pinehurst. He's a great, it's one of General Barrett's person. He's a National Guard captain, Green Beret, great American, now in cyber. And he's there. His name's Captain Neil Schubert. He's like, he says to me, he goes, sir, I never want to be more than a captain because I'm like a PowerPoint ranger. I'm good. They don't give me a hard time. So Neil Schubert, hopefully I'm not blowing your spot down there in Pinehurst. He has a young family. He's in the National Guard there with North Carolina. But I just want to give you that kind of overview of the geopolitical stuff, but also how it applies here in our country. And I'll close lastly, if it's okay. I am passionate. I think we all have this love of country, and this is the one last push I would say. Most of us in this room took the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. For a skinny kid that grew up in a row house, my dad was Navy enlisted and cop for 22 years. Just tell him I'll come back. We're good. So, but when you have great Americans that just got done serving the longest wars in American history, 20 years in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the fact is that we're hurt for recruitment. There is a disconnect in America. People still respect the military. The two most popular professions in the United States of America is the American military and small business owners. One of the least is political public servants. I'm not in that job anymore. It's been a while. I'm retired. I did 4 years. It was like college. I'm never going back. It was great, right? But I would say to you, when you look at the propensity to serve and the obesity crisis in America, we just can't sit on our hands and be like, well, I don't know why they're not serving. We got to be part of the solution. We got to go out there. I mean, that's why I was, on USA, I was at the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick and last night in Philadelphia talking about our Army, to an Irish Catholic group. And again, it wasn't Democrat, Republican, but I was like, hey, we need more John Kennedys to join the military. We need more folks to join. And there was just these young, college students that just joined in. And I'm like, hey, it's not too late. You graduate, you just graduated, you can do OCS. I'm walking them through the, how do you become an officer, or you can enlist. But it takes all of us to be part of that solution. And if we don't think it's a problem, the all-volunteer force, I love the all-volunteer force. When I served my combat deployments, I wanted the person on my left and the right to be there. I don't want them to be forced there. That was a lesson learned from Vietnam. But if we're just going to sit on our hands and not be part of it, of that solution, that's on us. And yeah, our chapter in Philadelphia, our AOC chapter has exploded, 600% increase over the last 3 years, but recruitment is still lagging, and we got to do a better job at that. And that's why, I'm at a shopping mall, I see the Army sign, I'll just stop in, hey, Patch Murphy, I'll go do a couple pull-ups, push-ups, hang out and take selfies and put on Instagram, tag AUSA. But doing that kind of stuff makes a difference. So don't think you have to have the perfect solution out there. You have to just get out there. You have to be aggressive. You have to be forward-leaning, and you have to be part of that solution, because we have people like great heroes like Maria Barrett, the cyber commander, who needs these young Americans to come into her ranks and to do a great job. And by the way, we have to make it easy on her and the team, the Army team, when they come in, whether they're civilians or active duty or reserve, the fact that if they want to go back in the private sector, they can come back in, whether it's with the Army, which is America's varsity team, or go in FBI, Secret Service, et cetera. That's, again, changing the rules that are in place, regulations, is critically needed. And it's only going to help when we put political pressure. And that's why Bob Brown and Les Smith and the team at AUSA does a great job. We have folks that are on the Hill, hooking and jabbing and letting people know the challenges that we have. So with that, can I answer? Can I have time for 2-3 questions? All right, great. 2-3 questions. Otherwise, I'll start telling bad jokes.
I'd never expect you to tell a bad joke, sir. That's my job. I'm going to be running the Ukraine, moderating the Ukraine panel, or herding the cats in the Ukraine panel a little bit later. I'd love to get, as you look ahead towards our agenda for the conference, and particularly, the lessons in the cyber, electronic warfare, information warfare space from Ukraine. General Barrett obviously mentioned this. What would be the top ones for you from that conflict, the ones that you would most want to see us talk about?
Sydney, I thanks for your question. The overall mission of all of us in this room and of our war fighters and of our legislatures as a government, the number one job of the government is public safety. And we make sure that we do not have a fair fight for our men and women, that we have the technical and tactical advantage over our enemy. And we have the tactical and technical advantage when it comes to cyber right now. And we also have the technical advantage when it comes to night vision. We fight at night. When I was in the invasion of Iraq, we were at night doing combat operations at night. And during the day, we were winning hearts and minds. When it comes to the Ukraine fight right now, they're doing offensive operations at night, because Russia still doesn't really have capable night vision goggles. The same thing, Russia has very robust cybersecurity and drone technology. And we're doing our best to help counter their offensive capabilities there and doing what we can. Again, I have my top secret SCI clearance, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But because I want to keep it. So all I would say is that we have been a very good partner in the fight. If you also looked at, I think the macro approach, we forget. If you would ask us a year and a half ago when this kicked off, what would it be like when you have an ally, when you have all these allies going to stop this illegal invasion? They've lost over 100,000 troops. The Russians have lost over 100,000 troops. We haven't lost any American soldiers. We've lost folks who have volunteered over there. But and again, the Ukraine, the will of the Ukraine people has been amazing. But I would say that it has hurt them. The recruitment, the conscription that they're doing, and I just don't want us to turn in that way. I want to keep an all-volunteer force, but we have to do better. And I think part of it is, the messaging, and that's why we kicked off this. I'm on Fox News and have my own show called The Warrior Class, because we got to tell stories of folks like, and General Milley is great, and I love him. We all love him, hockey players, but most of us in this room probably don't know who Alex Gorski is. Well, he was also an Army Ranger who happened to lead Johnson & Johnson, largest healthcare company in the world. He's on the boards of Apple, IBM, JP Morgan Chase. And we should talk about people who make $25 million a year, because some of these kids, I want to be like Alex Gorski. I want to be like Phil Knight. I want to be like Sam Walton. You just got to let them know there's a path for them. If that's what they want to do, they don't have to do 30 years. They can go 3 years, 5 years, whatever. They'll still be part of our brotherhood or sisterhood of this America's varsity team. And if they don't want to be part of a varsity team, they go to the Marine Corps and be in the JV team. But So Sydney, hopefully that answered your question. Probably time for one more. I'm sorry, I went a little bit over. The 12th man, I love it. Colonel, I'm coming down to Austin. I'm at a Veterans of Tech thing. I know you're at A&M still, right?
Actually, I'm up here.
Oh, okay.
I'm working in that private sector. Okay.
All right. So if you don't know, literally the 12th man, he is. So one, I'm not part of the long gray line at West Point, but I'm a faker, man. I just want to be with these great Americans. So I was a young professor, as a captain there, teaching constitutional law, was in the board of visitors there, and that was chair of innovation. But Army Navy games, football games, literally the 12th man, like you would see him with his shirt off and stuff like that. I'm like, man, and that would get me jacked up. I was like, so I'm sorry. I know that's not what you're talking about, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for being here today. Greatly appreciate your inspiring words. We need to bring in that young talent.
Yep.
We need to retain them. No question about it. I want to address a different topic. The National Cyber Strategy was released back in February, March timeframe. Mm-hmm. That one of the themes of that document says we have to realign, we have to rebalance the responsibility for defending cyberspace more on those bigger players. So again, looking at it from a capitalist perspective, how confident are you that with the influence of the federal government, that we'll be able to put more of the onus on those bigger companies that are well resourced to help us defend cyberspace?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a big believer of the carrot and stick. So you see that with CMMC, and then so when you have companies, whether Raytheon, BAE, Lockheed, and their contractors, it's putting the same onus on them, but making sure that we're clear about it. Now again, we keep pushing back to the right. It is. I would say that we should recognize the fact that you heard me. I have concerns about our critical infrastructure, but not in the tri-sector. In our finance world, I mean, you talk to Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, he will say, I'm a tech company, not a bank. And they're high speed, low drag as far as in the financial service. And again, it's not just JP Morgan, it's PNC, whatever, right? The big banks are good. Energy is relatively good. I mean, the Colonial Pipeline, was a setback, but I would say generally energy and telecom. So I think in those three sectors, I feel good about. It's the other sectors, to your point, we need to do these public-private partnerships. We don't want to be like the CCP in China. And again, I'm not trying to cause a fight, which I think we all in this room, those of us who serve the combat, we're the reluctant warriors. We don't want to, but we got to prepare to make sure we deter China. The China people, the billion people in China, again, they're 3 times their size. They're good people. It's the regime that's aggressive. It's the regime that we have to worry about. And so putting the proper pressure, and I think people realize that they're a transactional entity, the Belt and Road Initiative and all this, and we're not. As our leaders always said, again, Colin Powell quote, we go and fight wars, foreign wars, but we don't ask for their land. We don't ask for their treasure. We just want people to believe in freedom and liberty for all. In the private sector, there's going to have to be a little bit more of a stick from the government. Again, I'm a limited government guy, but the government at its core should be like a referee. And if people aren't pulling their weight and they're hurting their customers, they're hurting other companies, et cetera, we gotta sometimes do the stick and not just the carrot. So we gotta be that rebalance. I read the strategy, and one of these geeks, I actually read this stuff, and I read it. And I think one of the other things I took away from it was when you talk about personnel, it's that coming in and out of government. And because when you serve, it's like with Bob Brown. He's like, hey, Patrick Murphy, soldier. Yeah, like when you serve, and you all know this, but like you leave the uniform, you still have that love of country stamped in your heart. You still like put me in, coach. Like, and that's why I'm hustling out the, Les Smith. Can I go out to Austin, Veterans Attack? Yeah, Murphy. Like, you know what I mean? But I go do that, and then I'll tweet it out, and talk to their AOCA chapter. Like, I'm trying to, push where I can. But we have to do better of telling stories. And I also, if I could just, I'm not here to talk politics, but our army and our military is apolitical. I was independent my whole life until I had to decide, I ran for Congress. When I hear folks who never served, say the woke military, it pisses me off, right? Listen, I used to work I'm a blue collar kid from Philly, right? I had the best jobs. I worked my ass off. I didn't work smart when I was in high school, but I had 4 jobs. I worked for the Phillies, worked for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I was a very impressive 120-pound security guard at Old Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. I will tell you that Veterans Stadium was tougher duty than Baghdad, Iraq. We had a jail in our stadium, like literally. The judge was a Philly cop with my dad. His name was Seamus McCaffrey. I mean, it was right out of Hollywood. But I left in 1993 when the Phillies made the World Series. We lost to the Toronto Blue Jays. Joe Carter hit a home run off Mitch Williams. I won't forget. It broke my heart. Our leadoff hitter was Lenny Dykstra. I love Lenny Dykstra. He's a Met. Lenny Dykstra then, hasn't had a great post-career, bankruptcy and cocaine and other stuff. And Lenny Dykstra and his son like to always talk about the woke military, and people aren't. I say, if the military was so woke, then why is the retention rate so high? Our military is not woke. Our military has to look like America that we represent. It just like for these folks that want to like, and again, people say to me, man, you're on Fox News. I'm on Fox News because I love America. And, I disagree sometimes with some of the anchors, but I give my viewpoint, but I'm not there to be controversial. I'm there with this unifying message of like, hey, listen, they know, our adversaries know they spend tens of millions of dollars a year on social media dividing our country. And they're trying to amplify voices in the far left and amplify voices in the far right. And some people are stupid enough to fall for this stuff. Every time I do an event, when I get these Facebook request stuff and it's, people that aren't from our country, like I know what they are. They're trolls. They are, and we have to, and I get it, with the new stuff, like if it bleeds, it leads. It's infotainment. And I don't mean this in a bad, but like, we don't have the Tom Brokaw's of the world and other folks who, we have folks that go to whatever their viewpoint is, and they'll go to MSNBC. If they're Democrat, they'll go to Fox News to reaffirm their beliefs. And, we're all here as Americans. And they want people on these networks. And again, I'm paid for it, right? But I'm there always unifying the message, right? The world doesn't come to an end. And we still have the greatest country in the world. But we're the greatest country in the world not because God loves us more than other countries. It's because, we have this great document called the Constitution that says that, and even in the preamble, in order to form a more perfect union, we are not perfect. We've amended our Constitution 27 times. We all know our history. But if we don't actively make our communities and our country better every day and pass along better to our kids, we're not going to remain the best country in the world. We have to have that underdog mentality. What we call in Philly, the row house mentality. I grew up in a row house. I knew the people in our people in our neighborhood. I shoveled the steps for the elderly people in my neighborhood, and I didn't get paid for it. Why? Because my dad said to my brother and I, go shovel Mrs. Deegan's steps. We go, it wasn't like when you feel like it. It was like, yo, you watch cartoons enough, you had cereal, get out there. Yeah. And so we just have to get back to that, taking care of people on our left and right. Again, not in a social society, but in a way that makes sense for our country. And we have to be part of that solution. Thank you.